I could either choose to cower or I could choose to fight. I chose to fight and scrap and crawl my way out of that depression, just out of unemployment. And that is exactly what I did. Throughout that process, it was a really lonely time. I didn't have a lot of people in my life, but I kind of did that on purpose because a lot of times in life, we have so many people in our ears all the time, people doing this, people doing that, people doing all this talk stuff. And you know, you're on social media and you're looking at what this person's doing, you're looking at what that person's doing, and you start to measure yourself and you start to compare yourself. And one of the things that I realized is that, okay, my journey has taken an unexpected right turn. I'm going down a path that's completely uncharted, that I have no idea where it's going to go, but I'm rolling with it because it feels right. And so what I did was I got off social media. I, deleted my Facebook. I didn't want to see what other people were doing because I was just going to focus on me. And I also cut back my social circle. I just didn't talk to people. And, I became a hermit. And if people kind of asked me where I was, I told them I was leading a life of hermitude. But and sometimes I guess people could also call me a bad friend for it. But I recognized that in that time, something great was happening to me. It was like a personal transformation. And it's like, being a caterpillar in your cocoon. You just need to be by yourself while you're working something out, while you're trying to create something beautiful, something that you can feel proud of, and something that will just give the world, it's just give the world something nice. That's all I'm trying to do, really. And so I backed away from people and I really just focused on myself. I did, no shame, and I'm really happy I did because within that solitude, I was able to create something that I can be very, very proud of on the back end and on the front end of the business. So it wasn't until, and all along I'd say that I've kind of been attracting things that, I wanted into my life. But I was doing it at a very subconscious level. And this January, I started reading a lot more books. And the way these books have been coming to me have been kind of weird. Like, in January, I discovered the Kindle library. I had Prime at the time, and so I was like, Amazon Prime. So I was like, oh, look at this Kindle library. Let me see what kind of books they have. And I was like scrolling through like the free books on the library, and I came across one that says, It Is Done, The Guide to Instant Manifestation. And I was like, well, this sounds too good to be true. But I was intrigued because I looked at the reviews, and the reviews were like 5-star. Everybody was like, yo, this works, this works, this works, this works. And I was like, this sounds too good to be true. Usually things that are too good to be true are exactly that. But this book wasn't selling anything. It's not like they wanted my money, and it was free because it came from Amazon's Kindle library. So I was like, you know what? It's short. Let me check it out. And that book changed my life in the sense that it finally explained so much of how I attract certain things into my life. And not only how I do it, but gives you steps to actively do it yourself on a conscious level. And I remember, and if you follow the blog, you've already heard this story, but I remember going bowling back in like February, I believe it was February, and your girl was just the worst. Like, I was in last place. I might have scored like 30 points in the entire game. And my friends were all in the triple digits, and your girl had 30, and I was like, it is what it is. I'm clearly not a bowler. But at one point, I decided to, think back. I wasn't even finished with the book, but I'd gotten through enough. And I started kind of doing some of the suggestions that the book made. And I remember this so clearly. And one of the things is you just kind of sit there and you visualize in your mind what that is that you'd like to achieve. And so in this case, I just wanted to achieve just bowling really well, scoring amazingly, and maybe even winning. That's what I want to achieve, even though I had been in last place and I had scored 30 points. So then I did that and I visualized it, and then here's the key thing, and this is key to everything. It's what's going to wrap this whole mumble jumble rambling stuff together. Anyway, then you have to feel what it feels like to achieve that goal. So I'm sitting in the bowling alley. All my friends are like, wah, 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 and they're all over the place, but I'm taking this 2 minutes for myself to visualize winning and to feel what it would feel like to just hit strike after strike after strike. And it's a good feeling, and it's warming my heart, and I'm like, oh, how nice that would be, and it just feels amazing. And then here's the key thing after that. You say, it is done. Now, the words aren't necessarily important, but it's the meaning and the intention behind the words. So you're saying, it is done, it's going to happen. It is done. And then you forget about it. You forget that you even did it. And see, I didn't even do this consciously. Somebody called me and was like, Lana, you want some nachos? And I was like, yeah, girl, I want some nachos. And so then I got up and I went to the concession stand, and I completely forgotten that I even did this exercise. Literally, it took 2 minutes. I forgot about it. I wouldn't even take it seriously, to be honest. And I just went and got my nachos. But you know, the next game started, and who won? Who won with triple digits? And you're like, well, what happened? Like, how did you become a better bowler, literally, within, minutes? And honestly, the only thing I can tell you is when I went up to go throw the ball for the first time in the second game, I just heard, like, something in my head was just like, you're throwing it wrong. Flick your wrist like this. And I was like, flick it like this. And I flicked it, and it was a strike. And that's how I scored the. I am not lying to you. There are witnesses. And there was even a girl who didn't know me that well there. And she was like, were you just faking that first game so you could come back and win? And I was like, no, I wasn't. I didn't. But that's when I knew that just was not a coincidence. Like, how do you go from being last to being first place? And that's when I really started taking it even more seriously. All of these principles were talked about in the Bible. All of these principles are talked about in Buddhism. I mean, these are some pretty ancient principles. I mean, it's the same stuff. Even to the extent that I was kind of like, again, it was one of those things like the Amazon Kindle list. I was kind of like going through my podcast, kind of looking for a new one. And something in my head was just like, T.D. Jakes. And I don't follow T.D. Jakes at all. Like, not at all. I can't really even tell you anything about him except that he's like a mega pastor at a mega church that's like ginormous. That's the only thing I know about the man. And he's black and he's kind of big. That's the only thing I know. But something in my head was just like, T.D. Jakes. And I was like, T.D. Jakes? And it was like, yeah, T.D. Jakes. And I was like, let me type in T.D. Jakes in this iTunes podcast. And I did, and I came across this series he was doing called Destiny Steps. And basically, he's talking about the same exact principles I've been reading kind of about the law of attraction. They're the same thing, except it's all biblically based. I mean, they're his sermons, so it's the same principles that Jesus was talking about. I mean, none of this stuff is actually new. It's just regurgitated in different ways for different comprehensions. So this is how I've been doing it. This is what I've learned, and this is how you can apply it in your life, and hopefully it will change your life too. The first thing that I learned that was super, super critical is